Hello and welcome back to What Steven Reads. My name is Steven and this is Teddy. He wants to go for a WALK soon, so that's what we're going to do. And hopefully he eats his lunch, so we'll see what happens. So this video, I wasn't going to make a video actually on this day because I have a few videos ready to get broadcast. But I did say I was going to do a book haul of more current or modern books, not so many classics, because it seems like I've been focusing on that. So I do have that, and then I did go a little bit book shopping the other day with my mother, and then today I just ran to see what came out, because today's Tuesday. And I'm wondering why I'm buying so many books. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. And then setting up a priority list of books that I want to get through. You know, there's those books that you buy and you really want to read, but then other books in the moment or in the season kind of get in the way, and they're not such a book about serious matter or, you know. So yeah, there are priority reads I want to get to, and I think it'll sort of be a TBR, but not a TBR to stick to for that month or even, you know, a season. It's just a list of books that I really want to get through, and that's why I bought them. So as I do the TBR, I am going to mention really quick why I bought it. Not just because it sounded good. It's either because I heard about it and people raved and think that you should read it because it's trying to, you know, bring a point about current life or the way things are in the world or about a cultural thing. And then there's books that you just buy because it sounded cool. So I definitely need to prioritize my reading, and that is the point of today. And then I have some questions for you about my choices in reading and what you think I should read, and maybe give me some answers as to why I like certain books, why I'm drawn to them, and all that kind of stuff. So it's time to go for a walk. You want to go for a walk? Oh, yep, he's ready to go for a walk. All right, so I'll see you in a bit. Bye-bye. Recording. All right, welcome back. Just went for a walk with Teddy. It went well. Teddy's a friendly dog. Like, if you came to my house with your dog and hung out in the backyard, he would just love it. He'd be going crazy, happy, just running around, pouncing, and all that stuff. When I walk him, he'll just randomly start barking at people. And I always say it with their dog or without their dog. And I'd be like, oh, if you were in the backyard right now, he'd just be all over you, happy and everything. I don't know why he does that. Got him during COVID, and we brought him to a trainer who, one session, was talking about some water filtration system that he sells for like 15-20 minutes. And I get it, like, the training was on us to do at home, and we probably didn't follow through with that. But he's a good dog, he's a friendly dog. It's just that when I walk him, or Peter walks him, he's just like, I don't know. He senses things about people, I have no idea. So anyway, this video is going to be a multi-part, so definitely check the timestamps, whatever they call it, chapters. I'll write which each section is going to be. I am going to just mention what I'm reading right now and what I had finished, because I don't know where else really to put that in a video. I think if I do like a weekly recap, I don't want to waste the whole video doing that. And I'm not at that level yet to in-depth talk about a book that I just read. So I'll just make some comments about the book that I just finished, which was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which you've seen me talk about reading. I finished it probably like a week and a half ago, I think, and I really enjoyed it. I wound up watching the Netflix movie, which was done a few years ago, I think, and I did not enjoy it at all. They changed way too much, and I get it, and I've said this before, when you do a movie, you have to make some edits, and you have to, you know, you're capturing a different audience than people who read the book. Most people probably didn't read the book, you know, and yeah, it just was not good. The things that they did change, I didn't quite understand what the need for that was. So whoever wrote that for Netflix, or if it was out in theaters, I have no idea. It was horrible. And then I watched the first movie adaptation, which I guess came out right after the book had been written, or if not long after, I'm not really sure, with Alfred Hitchcock directing it. And I liked it. I tried getting Peter to watch it, and he didn't last 10 minutes. He just found it totally boring, and which I get. It's a different era. But back to the book. The book I thought was beautifully written by Daphne du Maurier. And yes, it's flowery, but not in an annoying way. She's a beautiful writer. Her prose is gorgeous. Gorgeously flowery. That's what I'll say. So what I didn't realize, probably by chapter 2 or 3, I don't remember, is that you never learn the name of the narrator, who is the woman who winds up marrying Maxim. And she becomes the new Mrs. De Winter. So she's just always referred to as Mrs. De Winter. And I think they did it because throughout the book, narrator, she's very childlike. And I think it's said that she's about 21 years old. She's very childlike. She was close with her father, who passed away a year prior to going to Monte Carlo. Right? Is that right? Monte Carlo? I believe so. As that job as that woman's assistant, or, I don't know, companion in training. And she's just very timid. I think her character is portrayed as a little bit more independent in the Alfred Hitchcock movie. And then she meets Maxim, and then she leaves her boss behind in Monte Carlo and goes off to get married to Maxim. And there's a lot of, I say scenes, or lines or chapters or whatever, where Maxim treats her like a child. And it's infuriating. And I don't know if it's a sign of the writing at the time or the climate of, equality for women. I don't know. I'm not a historian. I can't answer that question. But I've seen or read things written in different times where a woman isn't treated like that. And it's frustrating. I'd rather have seen her marry Maxim's estate manager. He was a very cool character and very nice to narrator. The character of Mrs. Danvers, who was devoted to the original Mrs. De Winter, she is an amazing character. She's obsessed with the former Mrs. De Winter. And if it weren't for her as a character to be in that book, this wouldn't be a book, because her character is just phenomenal. I loved how she was written, and I do think that her character was captured better in the Alfred Hitchcock movie than it was in the Netflix movie. The Netflix movie, the actress that they used to play Danny, as she's sometimes called in the book, she's too beautiful. She's a very strikingly beautiful woman, and I don't think that really was a good choice to play Mrs. Danvers. It's, at the end of the day, it's a classic. I didn't realize it was a thriller. I thought it'd be more gothic horror-ish, and it's a thriller at the end of the day. And it's nice to see that a classic isn't just about daily life and, trying to think of other classics. I think it's Steinbeck was about, people and maybe, like War and Peace, things like that. This was a thriller. And I think this book is said to have kickstarted the genre of psychological thriller, which it definitely is. I definitely think you should read it. I do not want to give anything away, but if you're into thrillers with a gothic feel to it, there's no modern technology in it. This was written in, 1938. So you don't notice the lack of technology in this. When you read a book now in 2025 or whenever you're watching this, those things aren't important. In thrillers, there's lots of use of cell phones and emails and all that stuff, and that's not in here. There are phone calls, and I believe there's letter writing in there. That's the communication, and the other form of communication is getting in the car and traveling into town to talk to somebody. But I thought it was phenomenal. I highly recommend Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I think I'm saying that right, but we'll see. So I'm also reading Bookshops Bonedust by Travis Baldree. That's the prequel to Legends and Lattes, and I'm enjoying it. Say what you want about cozy books in general. At the end of the day, it's still a fantasy novel. You could take the word cozy off of the description of it, and it's a nice low fantasy novel. She gets injured, and her boss, so to speak, part of her clan, they're on a journey to defeat some evil being. She gets injured, so he drops her off to this little town, and she winds up getting close with the bookshop owner, and she gets a job there. And there are some low-stakes things in the book, and I think it's cute. I think it's I've been reading it before I go to bed every night. That's why it takes me forever to read. I have a book for bed. I got a book when I'm in work. I have the big books I'm trying to get through the sampling of. So, yeah, I'm a little slow. But at the same time, I'm enjoying reading multiple books because I'm finding that I am definitely a mood reader. And it just makes it more fun. Just the way you would flip through different programs on TV, I'm flipping through different books. So what I am currently reading, mostly in work, Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle, and now that I'm reading it, I have a better understanding of what it's about because the description that I had read last week or 2 weeks ago, one, I was confused as to what it's actually about. The main character's writing a book. So it takes place well after the first atom bomb was dropped onto Hiroshima, and he wants to ask the children of the creator of one of the engineers, chemists, of the atom bomb, do you remember that day? And the one child was obviously very young. He doesn't really remember much. He remembers about his relationship with his father. He's talking to one of his supervisors at the research facility. And that's basically what it's about. There's some humor in it. So far, I'm not very far into the book. I started making tabs just so I could remember some things from the book to talk about. And just the first line that I think that I highlighted, I found interesting. One of the characters says that people were still superstitious instead of scientific. He said if everybody would study science more, there wouldn't be all the trouble there was. Which I kind of agree with and I don't agree with. They say that religion is the cause of all war. I don't think that's true anymore. There's resources that people want to get their hands on. There's trade agreements. But at the same time, to say that science is the answer to all the problems, here you created something that destroyed lives. And, it's got its benefits and its negatives to it. So there's definitely a dichotomy to that thought. But I am enjoying it. I think it's cool. It's science fiction. It's very dystopian. So I will add this not into classics or science fiction. I'll put that into the new section I made for dystopian books. All right, so now for the more current book haul that I picked up, and I'm not going to go through the description of every book. You can, look it up on Google if you're interested. I'll just tell you why I bought it, and if I remember a quick synopsis of what it's about, I'll definitely mention it. So I picked up Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House because I was in Barnes & Noble actually today. Today's Tuesday. So I really enjoyed the Sundown Motel with the whole ghost thing, and I wanted just a great ghost story. No gore. And I did ask Google for some assistance to recommend something to me, and it mentioned The Haunting of Hill House from Shirley Jackson, and it is a Penguin classic, which I love, so I'll add that to that pile. So I might read that sooner than later because of the time of year, and Halloween's coming up. And then I picked up Orlando by Jacqueline Harpman, and she also wrote I Who Have Never Known Men, which is very well known, translated by Rose Schwartz. And there's a cover of that, very contemporary, modern cover. And it's a sort of retelling of Orlando by Virginia Woolf. And if you heard of that, it's a story about a man who inhabits the body of a female. And it doesn't get too science fiction-y involved like that. It's more, I'm going to say, existentially brought about in the story. I consider fantasy, I guess, a little bit. I consider it more speculative. So there's like a retelling of that in the modern world, and it just sounded cool to me, so I picked that up. This was more of an impulse buy, Beings by Alana Masad, and it's about the first stories of alien abduction. And I'm just in that mood. It's that time of year. I used to go crazy for alien stories, and it has decent reviews, so I hope I enjoy that. And then Don DeLillo's White Noise. Look this up because I don't think I could do it justice to describe it to you. But basically, something's going on. This is definitely under science fiction. There's something weird going on. And that's all I'm going to say. But check out the description of it online. It just sounds totally cool, and I picked that up. The only thing is it has the deckled edges. I didn't see any other copies. Probably should have looked on... Actually, I did buy this online, but I went by the cover, which I think is really nice. The Lilac People by Milo Todd. This is set during World War II. There is a couple just trying to survive, Hitler's Gestapo and rounding up of people, and a trans woman is in front of their home, and they take this trans person into their home and protect them. So I'm finding that I really enjoy books about the people experienced in their life around World War II. Again, I mentioned The Rose Code. I mentioned The Curse of Pietro Houdini. So I think I'm really going to enjoy this and add that to my list. Then I found a very nice copy of I Who Have Never Known Men. And I'm sure you've heard of it. Lots of people have been talking about it, still talking about it. And it's just a nice hardcover edition of it. I don't know. Let's see. This came out in 1995. So I don't know if this is an anniversary. Well, yeah, I guess it would be an anniversary copy. It is 2025. First Transit Books Collector's Edition. And I think it's beautiful. I like nice artwork on books, but this just looks really nice to me. So we got that. And I want to know what all the hype is about. They say it's a phenomenal story. So, yeah, I want to read that. That's why I bought it. And then there is an anniversary copy of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And I was talking to the girl at the register when I bought this, and she made a comment about the cover, that she liked it. And I said it's probably the original cover. And she went, oh, really? And I did a quick Google search, and in fact, it is the original artwork from the cover, which I think is really nice illustration there. It's a Netflix show, or is it Hulu? I don't remember, but I want to read it. That's like a priority read for me. And then I picked up a queer mystery novel, All of Us Murderers, a novel by K.J. Charles, who I have heard of. And even the cashier said this was a very good book, has great reviews. And I'm excited to read that. I don't know if I'm going to get to it for this season, but listen, even if the season ends and I haven't gotten to it, I'll read it after. It doesn't have to be October or Halloween time to read a murder mystery. And William S. Burroughs' Naked Lunch. Awesome cover. I love that. Why did I buy this? So I bought this because I heard the guys on Life on Books talking about it, and they have high regards for this book and the writing and enjoyed it. And it's just one of those books that I've heard recommended, and oh, you should read this, everyone should read this book, and that's simply the reason why I bought it. So that's it for the book haul, which brings me to the point of why am I buying all these books. I think for me, there's a few reasons. I buy books I see in the bookstore or hear about, especially if they're newer and I buy a hardcover, is I'm afraid that it's not going to be available anymore. And books do go out of print after a while. And then I don't want to get stuck having to search for a book that I heard great things about in used bookstores. Not that I wouldn't enjoy that, but what if I don't find it? And then I don't want to get stuck having to buy a Kindle version of a book. So that's one reason. Two, there's that, the endorphins release of buying stuff. But that kind of fades away as soon as I swipe my credit card, so I don't know if that's a thing. But, I don't know, why do you buy books? Do you buy tons of books? Because I keep saying I want to go to the library more often, but now I have these piles of books that I keep buying. But I do have the utmost intention of actually reading them. And I have been. I'm going through my library, depending on what mood I'm in, what genre. So, so that's the book haul. Why do you think I buy books? Am I just like everybody else, just wanting to acquire them? I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me why you buy books. Do you buy books? Do you go to the library? Do you read on the Kindle Unlimited? Does Kindle Unlimited have a good selection of popular books, or is it just stuff that's not widely known? I definitely want to know that. Still recording? Yes. Okay. talking for 38 minutes? Holy crap. I can't believe this video is already 38 minutes. If I could see that properly from here. 37? Does that say... So I have a question for you, and I would love to see some feedback in the comments. In looking at my YouTube analysis, statistics, whatever they call it, 100% of my audience are female. And looking on Storygraph and just remembering what I've read the past couple of years, most of the books I read have been written by women. Not all, but most. I seem to be drawn to novels written by women. So out of curiosity, I added up all male authors and all female authors that I have read. And then I added books that are on my shelf that I haven't read yet. And I am wrong. As far as books that I own are concerned, 66 are male authors and 65 are female authors. I didn't count books that I've had for years before I started my reading journey 2 years ago. I feel like sometimes I say 3 years, sometimes I say 2. It's 2 years ago. So I am wrong, but I think what I meant to say is that I feel like lately, since I've gotten into literary fiction, that I'm more drawn towards female authors. And I could be totally wrong because the data is not backing that up. And I would have to go through all of the literary fiction and see what numbers there are actually. But as a human, I feel like I have been drawn more towards female authors. So I'll leave it at that. So I do apologize for getting the data wrong, because the data is here, but I do feel how I feel with books that I've been drawn to lately of the past 6 months to a year purchasing. So there you go. And I'm wondering why that is. Am I drawn to the narrative by female writers? Do I like the pacing of female written books? Do I like the storylines written by female authors? Is it even worth asking that question? Like, who cares, right? As long as I'm reading what I enjoy. But I'm curious to know what you think. When I think of the books that I like to read, which I had said, I surprised myself being interested in literary fiction as opposed to, mainly fantasy and science fiction, which I am missing reading some more fantasy and science fiction. I want to read something a little bit more exciting. But why have I been drawn to more literary fiction, which the books I read, written by females? So I want to know what you think the reason is. I do know I'm not into hardcore thrillers with lots of action. For me, that's something I'd rather see on a screen, a movie or television or whatever. I don't want to read fast-paced action in a book. That's just not for me. I used to read those Pendergast novels by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. And yeah, there's scenes in there where I'm just like, what is going on? I can't follow this right now. But I did enjoy them. So I'm just, I be interesting to look into it and just see, is there something about the female narrative that I'm more drawn to? And I'm trying to think if I read anything that is more fast-paced and action-y written by a female. Yes, The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. That was an awesome fantasy adventure book with a female protagonist. I thought that was amazing, and the sequel comes out soon, actually. I don't know if you're aware. If you've ever read it, it's great. Definitely check it out. So I would like to know your opinion on that. And back to the YouTube thing, saying that it literally says, and it doesn't have all the data because it's only going by people who have filled out their profiles, male or female, and their age. My age range is like 25 to 35, and then it jumps to like 60 to 75 or 55 to 70. And I just find that's interesting. I don't have that middle age range. I don't know why that is. And it says right now 100% female, which I think is cool. So if you're watching me and you're a female, why do you think that I'm drawn more towards the female narrative, female writing? I think it's an interesting discussion. And if you're a guy watching me, why do you think it is? You know, are there writers that fall along the types of narrative that I enjoy written by men? You know, I think of Four Squares by Bobby Finger, that's written by a man. I love that story. You know, it's also about a gay man and his friendships, which I've said before, I love literary fiction novels about friendships, and it's just something I'm drawn to. So yeah, not to get too intellectual about the whole thing, because I'm sure there's more I want to say, I just can't think of it at the moment. But yeah, I would definitely like your input on that whole subject. And the next video is definitely going to be about which big book that I chose. I have one more book to get through, which is IQ 84. I just want to read one more chapter in, what is it? Mr. Norrell, Mr. Strange, whatever it is. Because I'm going to read chapter 3, because something was supposed to happen. I thought it was going to happen at the end of chapter 2. And I think it's going to happen in chapter 3. So that's the chapter I'm going to end with for that book, and then move on to IQ 84, and then make my announcement. The last thing is I'm going to pull books out, as I was saying before, priority reads. I want to pull out all the books on my bookshelf, and I don't have a huge collection. Someone made a comment that they had like 1,000 books. I'm like, that's amazing. I don't know if I want to have 1,000 books because I don't have the space for it. I mean, I could put more bookshelves up, but I want to read what I have mostly, and you know, the few purchases that I've been doing. But I want to pull out the books that when I bought it, I had the intention of reading it like that day, but I didn't because something else came up. Seasons come up and you get into a different mood. So I'm going to pull out all books that are priority reads and make a list of them. And then I'm going to do something with that list. So I'll do a video about that. I just ordered something on Amazon. I think it'll be visually appealing for these priority reads. And I'm going to pull one once in a while and make sure I read that book to get it off of my list and say that I read something that I 100% had intention of reading, instead of jumping to a thriller that, you know, once you read, you're not going to read it again. I think priority books are books that you would go back to read a second time or a third time. You know, I've read 1984 3 times. So books like that. I want more books that are really going to make an impact on me. At the same time, yeah, read something you enjoy. It's Halloween season, it's fall season. Read something cozy, read something scary. So that's what the priority read's going to be. And maybe there'll be a couple of silly things that I've just been meaning to get to, which just never have. So that's it for today. So I will see you next time. Please definitely leave comments, leave questions. And thanks for joining in. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.